I grew up on the near west side of Chicago, and I was just fascinated by weather ever since I was very young. So I knew this was going to be something that I was going to do my entire life. We always tell people, and I certainly tell kids when I go to schools, to try and follow your passion. It doesn't always work out that way. I know that there are many people who I've talked to who wanted to get into weather but didn't. They went a different path, and I thank every one of them because I don't need that type of competition out there. So please, go into other things. That makes it easier for me. There's plenty of us doing the weather. But this is something that, you know, for 25 some years on TV, 30 total years in broadcasting I've been doing. And I'm still on the radio here on Max FM, which is out of Georgetown and Mason, so you can hear me on the radio as well. I think here in Bethel you probably get 95.5 better. But it doesn't matter. I'm on the radio, and I have my own weather consulting company. My wife is technically the owner, so I have to bow down to the boss in many ways here. But that's all right. She doesn't do the forecasting, I do. But it's just one of these things where the weather passion is what's always been driving me, not the broadcasting passion, but the idea of being able to provide reliable information for folks. And this happened. Now, this actually started happening a while ago, this climate change. I started getting into it when I first got here, really. We got here in 1993. We started up at Fox News in the October of '93, along with Jack and Phyllis and Greg Horton. We had a great team there, and I recall when I got to town, it was shortly after I got to town, I got an invitation in the mail, a rather unusual invitation, from the White House. And it was from Vice President Al Gore at the time. And Vice President Al Gore wanted to invite meteorologists from top markets, like this one, Cincinnati's a big market, we're number 30, 31 in the nation, to come out to the White House and hear the presentation on global warming. Well, at that point, I'll be quite honest with you, it was just prior to moving here. I lived in Johnstown, Pennsylvania before coming here and heard about the Cincinnati opening. And I don't know, many of us, the fact that we have these tea parties going at all is kind of dovetails into what I'm about to tell you. When I was in Johnstown, I really didn't have a clue as to where I was politically prior to coming here. I knew I had certain values that I believed in, but I wasn't sure which party. I grew up, my mom and dad were Democrats in Chicago. Don't even get into that. You guys know, sadly, you all know too much about Chicago at this point because of our president and the people around him. It really is that way. I grew up there. All right, there was a machine. They call it the machine. The Democratic machine truly is a machine, a scary machine. And we should be just as scared that that machine is now in Washington with all the power that it has and what they're doing with BP and everything else. So, when I was in Johnstown, I started hearing Rush Limbaugh on the radio. I'm like, who's this guy? But he started saying something like, that's what I think. So I guess I'm a conservative. Not so much Republican, because he made that case for the years, because there's Republicans that have disappointed me greatly as well. It's a matter of me being a conservative, and that's why this is a Tea Party. We're multi-denominational, if you will. Come from anywhere. You just want to see the freedom remain in our government as it is, not this socialist overthrow, progressive overthrow we're seeing right now with czars and regulators that we have no control over. So when I got to town here and I got this invitation from Al Gore and Clinton, I already started to be leaning that conservative way, and I said, well, what's wrong with this? And I really wouldn't care if it was Dick Cheney sending me that same invitation. I would have said, why is it I've got a government official inviting me to Washington to talk about something scientifically based? If it was the head of the National Weather Service or something, or NASA, although even NASA we found out is a little corrupt, I would have said maybe. But Al Gore is going to talk to me about climate change, so I actually declined it. I didn't go. I wasn't interested because I had a feeling I knew exactly where it was going to go, which is that there were some head highlights on that already. Man is to blame, it's man's fault. Once you start hearing that, once it's our fault, and we need regulation to change that, well then I know exactly where it's going. It had nothing to do with actual changing climate, it had to do with regulation. That's really what it's about. And remember, this started back in 1970, really, with the first Earth Day. Now, I was 1970, I was 8 years old. I didn't know what it was, okay? So, the first Earth Day. And we've had all these Earth Days, and what it was, and I've done research on this, and I don't break that down here because I don't want to talk about politics as much as I do want to get into what the whole climate change thing is about. But the Earth Day and the Green Movement started after the 60s sort of radicals got bored with the whole anti-war thing, and that was winding down, and so where's our next place to go? Where is it going to be a good spot? Now, you've got the followers. Those are the folks underneath, many of whom believe in the cause, and they're out there really supporting it, thinking, yes, it is, we need to save the planet, and things are dying, and blah, blah, blah. All right. But the ones leading it, the ones actually starting it, if you look at Earth Day, it was a politician who started it. I want to say Minnesota, Wisconsin senator or something like that, who actually said he wanted to stir things up. Things were getting too quiet. We're going to start this green movement. We're going to get this thing going. So he started Earth Day. And it was in the midst of that others were getting involved, who have all been in this climate scheme now, such as the Michael Manns and the Phil Jones at the CRU, and James Hansen at NASA, and Al Gore. These folks are all coming up and coming as well. And in that same belief of, yeah, this is a really good way to kind of, consolidate power a little bit more, but we're going to do it under the guise of we need to protect the planet. Now, at some point, there may have been those who believed that CO2 was actually warming the planet. As you know, if any of you know anything about science, what we know for sure is that we don't know everything. There is so much left to learn. Every day, I am on 4 to 5 web pages, updating, refreshing during the day, seeing new studies come in from around the world. Amazing. Trying to read these things, phenomenal. So I just go over the highlights, and you are overwhelmed by the amount of information that we're still learning, still discovering. We don't know a lot. And so the idea that we would suddenly, please tell me to calm down if I get too excited. I want to remind you that. Yeah, you could. Because I started going, and then I realized I'm not even pressing a button. I'm not even going. That's terrible when that happens. The idea that we would start passing laws to regulate something we don't understand, that seemed a little strange to me. I'm sure it's not the first time, but now it's in my world. And as a meteorologist, I thought, I want to just do weather. I just want to make forecasts. I don't want to start getting involved in politics, but I've got a big mouth. I'm the oldest of 5. I've always had that. And someone asked me opinion, I'm willing to give it, though it's gotten me in trouble a lot of times. So I thought, the heck with that. I mean, if someone asked, and I was doing this on TV too, trust me, it makes anchors uncomfortable. I'd be like, this global warming's garbage, whatever. Really? Okay. Well, I'm sports. What's going on? How about the Reds? Yeah, sure. So that's what happened. Now, I didn't catch any flack from the bosses on that, because really, there's no way they could argue. But at the same time, you try and take that neutral position for the most part, until, of course, we realize over the last 2 decades that the mainstream media has been swinging way out there, pushing all the left agenda, which is why, because they will rip on Fox as much as they want. But the only reason Fox is successful is because they have viewers. It's ratings. And if people are watching them, it's because there's an alternative to what they've been used to for, all our lives growing up, 60s, 70s. Now you've got an alternative. And people like that alternative. That's why they're #1 in news. So whether or not you agree with them or disagree with them, they're doing something right. And these other guys are just not used to that, and it's really bugging them now. The Glenn Becks of the world, the Sean Hannitys, things like that. So I started getting into this, and that's why this is now my, 3rd Tea Party appearance. In fact, the first one was the biggest one. Some of you may or may not have been there, recall, was the one up in Butler County. What was it, Labor Day or something that weekend? Yeah. Huge, 18,000 people. Holy cow! Yeah, exactly. That's all I do. Thank you. That's all I do. To go out there and to see that type of turnout, which, the media tried to, it's 5,000, it's 10,000. There's a few protesters, there's 2 or 3 of them outside. Let's highlight that. 18,000 people show up, and I was right there with the sheriffs. I was talking to the guys counting the numbers coming in, and they said absolutely. In fact, we stopped at 18,000. It's probably more than that, but that's where we let it go. So this was like our own little Woodstock, except peaceful and a lot cleaner. And it's true. It really is. This is the thing that amazes me, and people point this out, and I love it. The Tea Party and Glenn Beck's done this so much on Fox, but showing our violent Tea Party rallies with people with signs and kids and everything, and then the left and their rallies, which are violent and actually do destroy property and start fires. We don't do that. We're out here trying to make a statement in a non-violent way that we want our government back the way the founders intended it. Well, this came about. All right, so they started talking cap and trade a number of years back. And I was glad to see Copenhagen failed. That nothing got settled there. They're trying to have other meetings now to see if they can't come to some climate agreement. But people around the world are waking up. It's not just here. The beauty of Al Gore's internet is that we Al Gore's been at the internet. We know that. So I just wanted to make sure we got that clear. This is a great man. So the beauty of his internet is that we can talk to each other immediately around the world. And in doing that, we're able to communicate what we're finding, what we're seeing. Scientists are able to publish their studies immediately versus having to go through an entire process to get into a journal that might be read months later. And now, of course, you know from ClimateGate that many publications were rejected because the people who were going to put it in the journal were biased one way, and they said,